honest, I was not very steeped in the comics.
I didn't read any comics or do any research.
I wasn't familiar with comics. I wasn't familiar with the movies.
We didn't lean into a whole lot of the history of the comic books.
Yeah, candidly, we were not enormous comic fans.
I wasn't super into superhero comics when I was a kid. I read a lot of like indie press stuff.
First thing I was told is don't read the comics.
Really?
As a creator, they put you in a bubble. They don't let you talk about any of the other projects, right?
You know, they're up for anything.
We ultimately decided to redefine it for the series and thought that it worked better for the story that we're trying to tell.
Did you ever read you've never read the comic?
When the DVD comes out, I'm going to read a Thor comic book and just see where we went wrong.
Dude, America first! America first! Get that through your head! Dude, America first! America first! You heard that before? What? America first! America first! What the hell, man? Dude, America first! America first! To all of you, let me explain one damn thing. America, America, America. Dude, you understand? America, America, America. My point is America's first. America, America, America. What the hell, man? Globalists, no! Goblins, no! This is it. Everybody get ready! America first! America first! Get that through your head! Dude, America first! America first! You heard that before? What? America first! America first! Get that through your head! America first! America first! And get the fish oil.
And get the fish oil, Vox. Yes.
I felt like I was back in my old Wax Trax rave days.
I figured I'd start things off a little bit high energy. I don't. Wow, Vox is dancing live on air chat. This is happening. Okay.
my wife always says, "Just keep your shirt on."
That's a good idea. Yeah.
So,
do you have chiseled abs at the ripe old age of 50 there? Or,
I'm 55, and
55.
I would say I have a 4.5 pack at the moment.
That's pretty good. So I don't have that. So
I'm working on getting down to. I've got 5 pounds to go to get to my old fighting weight of 175.
Wow.
So
I'm jealous right now. So yeah.
Well, there's a picture somebody we put up a long time ago back on the internet. People didn't know that I was related to the Commandant in the Marine Corps, my Uncle Chuck. And there's a funny picture of him shaving my head, you know, Marine Corps style. And I happened to have my shirt off at the time. And I didn't really think anything of it because I was, you know, I thought it was just like, well, you know, fun picture of my uncle and I. And a lot of people commented on that because it was kind of when I was in the middle of my martial arts stuff. So I was in pretty good shape back then. But but now, like I said, I'm 55. We just started our new season of soccer over here, and so I'm walking like I'm about 92.
Yeah, I feel that after tennis days too. It's I can't just like do the match and then go out to dinner and hang out like I used to. It's kind of like oh, I'm not moving now.
No, it's crazy. I realized I was getting old for the first time when I was 33, because in the same year I lost my top gear of speed, because I ran the 100 and 200 meter in at university, and so Division I, but you know, very bottom of Division I. But anyhow, I lost my top gear, and the same time I tried to do lift during the day and then do a full soccer practice that evening with the first team, and it was impossible. I mean, I needed like 2 days to recover. And
how are you into sports and athletics and then got yourself involved in science fiction? Those things don't compute. And when you hang out with most science fiction nerds and book nerds and all that, they start going at you going like, I don't care about sports ball. Well,
I never hung out. I never hung out with them. I mean, I never hung out with the nerds. I wasn't one of them.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, the thing that people perhaps have the hardest time understanding about, not just me, but just sort of like the community and the people around me and that sort of thing, is that, and even Owen, for example, you know,
we actually made the mistake of live streaming over Owen. I don't know if you know this.
Okay.
So I was thinking we can raid his chat over on Unauthorized real quick. I love doing this. We can stream bomb him. Be like
potatoes, but I'm
there he is.
salty as hell.
Wow.
I'll just type in the chat here. I'll be like,
hey everybody,
Dark Lord.
abandon him. Vox and John are talking about comics.
I'm just putting the Dark Lord is monitoring you. There you go.
That'll set him off. That's good for at least a 12-minute rant right there.
Right.
It's kind of funny because sometimes I'll read something, or I'll think of something, and I'll shoot him an email, and I'll mention this, like
tiny, but so are my problems.
I'll email him, and like a day or two later, I'll mention it to Space Bunny, and she's like, "You didn't." I'm like, "What?" She's like, "He's going to be talking about that for the next 3 weeks."
That's hilarious and true.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, one thing that people don't know about Owen and don't realize about Owen is that he was a pretty serious athlete. I mean, he's not just a big guy. He played lacrosse,
right?
Like the Indian tribes. I mean,
I'm just a country club champion, so I don't have some big like accolades or anything like that, except for locally. So
no,
yeah.
it's all good. The thing that people don't understand, especially the gammas who, hate sports ball with a passion and all that sort of thing, they don't understand that it's just fundamentally good for you. And it doesn't matter how good you are. What matters is that you get in there, you do your best, you learn how to succeed, you learn how to fail, and you also learn how to earn the respect of other men. And, sometimes it has to do with something that you do on the field. Sometimes it has to do with how you comport yourself under pressure. I mean, one of the things I got most praised for by my Italian soccer team was I got my knee ripped open by the goalie on a dirty play. And Oof. Then before I realized it and went to the hospital to get my knee stitched up, the defender came up and just literally grabbed my balls and like was trying to crush them. And the thing is, we were beating them. It was an important game. They were a very dirty team. And, I could have easily, taken the guy apart. It wasn't a problem. But I knew that they were trying to get a red card. They were trying to get back in the game. And so, my teammates saw me just like, laugh it off, not try to get into a situation or anything. And, that was the thing. I mean, you don't have to be a great athlete to not retaliate when somebody attacks you that way.
That's right.
In another situation, I absolutely would have, but because it was on the field, because it was in the middle of a big game, and because I knew that the guy was just trying to provoke me into doing something, and the teammates see it, and so, yeah, somebody said sack grab, damn. The Italians are like sneaky dirty. I mean,
well, we've known that. That's nothing new, right?
well, yeah, but it's still difficult when you're used to American style play. There's certain things. You expect the hip check. You expect maybe an elbow in your stomach, or that kind of thing, or maybe they grab your arm. But what the Italians do is, like, when you're about to jump up for the ball, they'll literally just grab the tails of your shirt right as you start to jump, or sometimes they'll put their hands on your hips and then lift themselves up to head the ball. And it's really sneaky, and it's hard for a referee to see. And
interesting.
I got so mad I got so mad in practice once. Our captain had pulled some of that sneaky crap, and yeah, I flipped him over my hip. And I thought it was fair, like he fouled me and I did something back. And the whole team was just appalled. Like, that's violent. You can't be violent. You just have to cheat. I was like, okay, I got to rethink this. You know, whereas if you're playing in England, they just kick you in the shins hard. Like the ref looks away and bam. So, you know, it's different. You know, depending on the nation, depending on the culture, you know, can you imagine what the comic nerds would do? The not the nerds, but like the gammas and stuff. Can you imagine what they would do if somebody like, you know, actually elbowed them in the chest?
Oh, they'd hyperventilate and die probably before they could do anything.
Screaming for the police. But you know, it's to me, it's really interesting to get to see the different cultures. You know, I really enjoyed being in the game designer culture. You know, back in the early '90s to the late '90s, basically the decade of the '90s. I really enjoyed that group because that was the most intelligent group of people I'd ever been around, bar none. You know, didn't matter, not politics, not economics, none of that stuff. Just the game designers were almost to a man, and they were all men. With actually even the one woman who was a game designer at the time, Brenda Laurel, was exceptional. You know, she was like in Bill Gates' little pet commune of brains that he'd recruited at the time. She had like I think it was called Purple Moon Studios or something. But every single game designer, I swear the average IQ must have been like 140, maybe more. And all of them were like severely accomplished in something that had nothing to do with games. You know, so I mean, they were the only people I ever met. The only people I ever met who immediately understood the joke inherent in my pen name without it being explained to them were both editors at Computer Gaming World. You know, Johnny Wilson and Chris.
People don't understand. Like that's obvious right away. Like really?
Well, yes and no. I mean, people think they understand it. They get the first part of it, you know, the Vox Day thing. They don't necessarily realize that it translates into the voice of my real name. You know,
right?
It's a double pun in Greek and Latin. A lot of people can get the Latin. They don't necessarily follow the next thing, but
fair.
But it's just interesting. And then whereas with comics, it's been really challenging in some ways because the artists, the illustrators, you know, they're visual people. They don't think in terms of logic, and you know, it's been sometimes challenging to communicate effectively across that border because I'm hopeless when it comes to spatial relations and visual things, so I can't give them any guidance.
Yeah, it's always pretty quick to try to find you know, some errors in things where it's like, oh, why does this person have a gun now when they don't even have any pockets, you know, on the page before? You kind of got to like look and track that stuff down, and artists don't really pay attention to that at all. And I actually go back in scripts because when I'm scripting, I start logically progressing the story as things go on, and then sometimes I write something and go, oh, I better actually. And this is how you get good at being a comic scripter, by the way, for people watching. When you're on page 10 and you set up a scenario and you realize, oh, wait a minute, it needs to be explicit back on page 3 that this and this is happening in order for it to logically even make sense visually here. You have to go back and you have to go back into the script and edit yourself as you're writing, which I don't do in novel writing so much. I usually wait until I'm done to go back and editing novel writing wise. It's kind of different.
Yeah, I don't edit really.
Yeah.
I mean,
fair.
It was kind of funny. Somebody had once said that you know, they didn't understand why people spoke highly of me. You know, I hadn't said anything particularly interesting or brilliant that they'd heard. I mean, certainly nobody here on this stream is going to be impressed by anything I've said about how Italians are sneaky. But anyhow, when they found out that I, you know, wrote A Throne of Bones without using an outline or really doing any editing or rewriting, they were a writer themselves, and they're like, oh, okay, now I get it. Because, there is a lot of things that you have to keep track of, whether it's in a comic script or a novel. And, for example, when you're working with a Brazilian artist, they don't know what a letter jacket looks like.
That's fair. Yes.
They have literally no idea. And so when we were working with Joe Bennett on the first whack at Red Hornet, he ended up leaving the project and going to work with Eric July, of course, and all that, which is fine. But it was kind of funny because I had to go dig up my old yearbook, take pictures of the guys wearing their letter jackets, and then also explain what they meant. Because his first instinct was just to draw nonsensical patches on the sleeves. He didn't realize that, okay, a star means that you're a captain. A bar means that you've lettered more than once in that particular sport. And the other, and you can't put the wrong patches on the wrong arm. The one arm is for the sports, the other arm is for the bars and the stars. And, or the other funny thing was, he was doing some sketches, and he was doing the thing where they kind of just make it multiracial. So there's a scene in a cafeteria, and there's 4 guys sitting together, and it's a white guy, or 2 white guys, a black guy, and an Asian guy. And this particular scene was being set in 1982 Moundsview, Minnesota. I said, no, they all have to be white, and at least 2 of them should be blonde. And he didn't believe it at first. So I went and...
Well, shouldn't they all be Somalian now, though? All of them?
Not up there.
Okay.
It depends where you are. I actually sent him a picture of the 2023 girls soccer team, and it was not just all white girls. It was 90% blonde white girls.
Interesting.
And he was like, is this Sweden or something? I was like, well, pretty much. That's what it's like in that place, especially at that time 40 years ago.
I find that a comic artist specifically, though, just because if you don't give them direction, just say, hey, they're in a crowd, they're going to always draw a black guy, an Asian guy, 2 women, no matter what it is, because they're conditioned to just do that Hollywood party that is generically the diversity party, I guess, at this point.
I'm always wondering, where the poor black guy comes from. How did he get dragged into this? Because, he probably doesn't want to be there.
Right.
It's just hey, I'm the token guy, which is kind of funny because my freshman year at university, there was a group of 4 of us that hung out together. And the reason was that we were all, they were all on the varsity soccer team as freshmen. I was on the track team, but I was a soccer player, and I should have just ignored what my coaches wanted and played soccer with my friends. But problem was that they had an All-American who was an All-American as a freshman the year before in my position. So I was thinking, what's the point of pissing off my coaches? I'm never going to play anyhow, right? But c'est la vie. But what was funny was that, so we had 2 white guys, a black guy, and a Jew. It
played soccer
just
with my
sounded
friends.
like a joke. But problem was that
Ridiculous, but yeah, fun.
But it does actually happen sometimes organically, but it's not the norm. It's not the way that Hollywood presents it.
It's really weird. They demand. Well, they hire everybody based on that in all the way up and down Hollywood. I mean, my Fandom Pulse kind of story of the day, which we're getting on the Substack today, is kind of a diversity backfire situation where they're hiring now. It's not just about doing that. You have to hire the token transgender person all the time now. This is the new thing that's happening.
That's insane.
And well, yeah, of course. And they did so. So they hired a composer who's transgender, and they made the mistake of, in the credits, the guy Dean Kinner or Kiner, I don't know how to pronounce it.
Oh, right.
Now goes by Deanna, and they just they didn't change his name, and so all the woke Star Wars fans, and if you click on this person's profile, the Daughters of Ferrix or whatever, it's all like, we're putting the queer in Star Wars, so all 5 of them are just completely outraged on Twitter about this because of this this whole deal. And that's not him. That's an archbishop of the Catholic Church. That's this.
That's a good costume.
This is Dean, who goes by Deanna these days, and that's and Disney's getting itself into trouble just for trying to do that diversity hire. So you can never win, and I feel like the system's set up now to where these people look for mistakes, or you don't know exactly what terminology to use these days, intentionally to try to start a drama storm around them for this kind of attention, to where they'll get heaps of praise on them for just existing, right?
Well, no question. And the reason that they have to do that is because they didn't realize that if they kicked us out of everything, and we just went off and did our own thing, that would leave them a dearth of things to be outraged about. They never got more traffic on file 770 than when they were bitching about sad puppies and rabid puppies.
No, it's completely dead now. And when they were on About Me for about a year there, before Mike Glare decided, I'm too good to mention you. When he did his little list of top 10 articles of the month, the one with my name in it was number 1 every single time.
John Del Well, because all they can do, all they have to do is, they can't create. Even this guy who's this composer, he's ripping off John Williams. He's just doing
right. That's the entire deal.
John Williams parody cover stuff.
Right.
It's absurd, and it's really fascinating to see the way
I got to meet John Williams about 10 years back, by the way.
Oh, yeah?
You want to talk about brilliant? The guy is, by the way, just side tangent. John Williams is brilliant. He's one of those just savants who understands music on a level that people really don't. And I got to listen to some of his just esoteric arty stuff. Mm-hmm. And it was just mind blowing. It was at a classical guitar competition in Los Angeles, and he had one of the performers, who's one of the best guitarists in the world, of course, playing this piece, and it was just, I never heard anything like it. And that's the level that a creator's on versus somebody who's a draftsman, which is who they hire. Everybody they hire now is not a creator, but a draftsman who's copying the creators, right?
Well, pull up this. There's a friend of mine I should introduce you to if you like classic guitar and stuff. Pull up on YouTube, Paco, Paco, and then Cornelius, Claudio, and that should find it.
Sanchez or Monteverdi?
No. Anyhow, it's actually
one of these.
It's the top one right there.
Cool. Let's listen. Let's educate ourselves and be classy, chat. Some wild piano playing too.
My friend is the pianist and the composer of the piece.
So I'm a classical pianist, if you don't know, too. So this is
really?
interesting for me, just on that level. Yeah. Wow.
It's a really pretty song. He wrote it when Paco de Lucia died.
Wow. That's cool. I'll give him a subscribe.
Yeah, you should definitely check it out. I really want to get him on Unauthorized. We've talked about it a couple times, I met him at a business conference in Barcelona.
Nice.
About maybe, I don't know, 12 years, a long time ago. And it was kind of funny because he's just fantastic, all these pyrotechnics and everything. And he at one point he's like playing with his left hand on the keys, and he's playing the hammers inside with his right hand. I mean, it was like watching somebody play electric guitar or something.
Wow.
And it was fantastic. And we got to be friends and hung out in Berlin, a couple other places where these kind of technology investment events that we were part of the community were holding. And it was kind of funny because after not this last album, but the album that song is on, when it came out, I called him up and I said, "Hey, I love your most recent album. It's fantastic." I said, I really like how you're doing more of the composing now. It's more mature. It's a bit deeper. It's not as exciting. There's not as many pyrotechnics. I said, but I think the composing is actually better. He laughs. He goes, "Thank you." He's like, people don't notice that the music is better. The playing is not as difficult, but the music itself is better. And so it's really been fun to see how he's matured from somebody who's playing other people's stuff in this very exciting, flashy way, to somebody who's like just composing stuff that other really good musicians like this Joshua Stefan guy are then taking and adding a whole new layer on it with the guitar and that kind of thing.
This is the Spanish guitar player that I met back in the day and friends of the family, and he's also from Spain, of course, but like, my God, he just has a different level of just touch to what he does compared to this is not exceedingly difficult to play, but his tone is different than what you'll find a lot of the times. Yeah.
Well, his left hand seems to be really light. Like if you see how he's holding his hand.
Yeah.
It's. I mean, my favorite guitarist, of course, is E-Rock.
Yes. Quite different.
Just a little bit.
And this has been your classical music segment of our NPR stream. Sorry, chat. Oh my God! Did we just become? We did. We just became NPR elitist goobers, like for 5 minutes there. Terrible.
Hey, look.
Yeah.
I think that we can't talk about whether Superman can beat up Batman all the time.
That's fair.
But
that doesn't even matter anymore, Vox, because as you probably are aware, and you're celebrating, it's International Women's Day in just 10 days. Now that this is chat, it is the final day of Black History Month. Happy Black History Month. I hope you had a great one. I'm going to be celebrating tonight, probably by going and seeing Dune. I'm sure there's black people in it. So,
isn't Zendaya black, or is
she?
I don't know.
I'll find what race is Zendaya. Yeah, Nigerian ancestry. Awesome, great. Yeah, I'm diverse. Cool.
Very much so.
Coming up soon.
This is the leading. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
The Women of Marvel to celebrate International Women's Day. This is going to be a hot seller, Vox. I can tell you right now.
Is it a swimsuit issue?
Absolutely not. It's not for the male gaze to understand.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. It's just we have Black Widow rescuing a cat.
Very exciting.
I'm not joking. We have here she rescued the Winter Soldier's cat, because the Winter Soldier's totally just got a cat.
Incapable of. I didn't know the Winter Soldier was gay.
Yeah, well, he's dating Black Widow, so he has to be a sensitive. They call them.
Oh, I see. Okay.
There's actually a term for it now. It's called like I think they call them baby girls or baby dolls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
we have
that's not tranny propaganda at all.
No, right, I know. And then we have Madame Web sitting around, and she's going to unveil the future of the Marvel Universe, and she lets this bad guy know that the future is female. Yes.
Well, nice.
Slay
And
Queen.
Just like the Force.
Just like the Force, yes.
The Force is female. That worked out really well for Disney.
So I imagine this is going to stand the test of time because it's just riveting. So
100%. We really should probably talk to them about binding it in leather. 'Cause archival acid-free paper, just to make sure that it's going to last long enough.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, it's interesting. Actually, we're just wrapping up Midnight's War, the first omnibus.
Awesome. That's exciting.
Yeah, I'm very stoked about that. And actually, it's officially March 1st here.
Okay, so it's no longer Black History Month over there. Okay.
But because it is March 1st, we can unveil the news of the next Castalia library book, which I know as a subscriber you're probably interested in knowing.
I just got the notification that I need to fix my my payment. Otherwise, I'm not going to get it.
Well, yeah, you need to fix that.
I do need to fix that. but yes. What do we got?
Beowulf.
Oh, awesome. That's fantastic.
But not just any Beowulf. We work with Timbre and Bindery in the States.
Okay.
He's a leather hand binder, and he's a fantastic artist. He's the one who does all of our sort of woodcut looking art for the interiors. So he does some of the title pages. He does some of the artwork that you've seen. So what he did is he did a full-blown Beowulf. He did a Kickstarter for it with his own. He basically did it in the medieval illuminated style.
Wow, cool. I just realized though that the chat probably doesn't necessarily know what Castalia Library is here.
Oh, okay.
So we do have a largely comic reading chat, but Vox and I come from something called Real Books. And so Vox has an initiative here through the Castalia Library where he wanted to do these nice leather-bound books, which I love collecting leather-bound books. When you announced this, I was like, this is the most exciting thing I've ever heard you do.
And you were the only person kind of in the circle who understood it. Like everybody else, including the entire production team, thought I was completely insane.
Yeah, I saw this.
Comics they were okay. Comics they were okay with. Audiobooks, regular books, whatever. And then I was like, yeah, we really need to do like Franklin Library style leather books. And they're all like, what is Franklin? What?
Yeah. Oh yeah. You called me up and you said, you know Easton Press? I said, oh yes, please. And so I was very excited. So the quality of these books, guys, are so off the charts. They feel good to hold. The paper is it's a different level. And it makes you want to read. It makes you feel like the feeling of holding one of these books and reading one of these books compared to just some mass market paperback, it gives a gravitas to it where it makes you focus more, which is impossible in 2024 to focus on anything. And two, it just gives you that nice experience. It's a good aesthetic, and and then when you put them on your shelf, they just look phenomenally beautiful. So Vox started doing this to collect.
You can see behind me. That's all.
This is all you collect, also, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So, Vox started doing this to basically collect a lot of historical books, some of the Castalia authors, and of course just do this for posterity because these are ones that last. Like these don't fall apart. You're going to have these in 50 years, and they're still going to be beautiful, right? Like the paperbacks. The paper they use doesn't really last that long. It yellows and all that. These don't do that. And so that was kind of the initiative here. So I bought in on this immediately, and you get a book about every 2 months, and it makes me happy because it reminds me to read a book every 2 months, which of course enriches your mind in an era where nobody reads anymore. So it's a good thing.
But we are binding some of them in leather. So we've already done a few tests. We actually bought a sewing machine that lets us sew the what we do is we print the comics with a slightly larger margin, and then we sew the side of it. So they're not sewn from behind, but it's actually a stronger side stitch, and then we bind it that way. And
Excellent.
So we don't gild them because it's a little bit too thin for that, but it really ups the ante, and some of the Midnight's War will be leather bound.
That's great. So leather binding comics is becoming a thing now. Is that something that you're going to be offering for people who might want to run Kickstarter campaigns for certain books? And
100%. We already have
excellent.
we already do have one client. We're doing like 12 of them for him.
Wow.
So we're just because we had it, we're actually doing them in goat skin, and so.
Oh my gosh.
So they're going to be pretty. They're going to be pretty awesome. And
well,
right now we actually just got our new jig for the stamper, and so we're just testing that out for the first time tomorrow. And if that tests well, then we're going to be in full effect. So
wow,
that's the last step we needed to do comics. There's still one more step that we would need to do before we start doing the full-blown library books. We need to get the hubbing, those bands on the spine. We can do them pretty much like that, but I want to do them the old Franklin style. So
that's great.
Wolfman at Large says no panda skin books yet. No. Also, I learned that you should not attempt to try to buy whale skin.
You would tell. This is a story.
Well, okay, so Owen, in his inimitable manner, decided that what we really needed to do was to do Moby Dick in whale's penis leather.
Oh my God!
He decided that was his dream book, and so I thought, that would be pretty funny.
A white whale, though, right?
Yeah, of course. So we need to find so I'm thinking, well, maybe orcas, because they're white underneath, maybe their penises are white. So I'm thinking maybe a little killer whale whale leather. As my wife says, this is why you're not allowed to have ideas.
It was Owen's idea. It's not your fault.
Well, exactly. Well, the problem is that being a game designer, if I have an idea, I will usually start to figure out a way to actually make it work.
Oh, geez.
And so the next thing you know, I'm on this Norwegian site that sells like seal fur boots and different type of seal leather capes or ponchos or whatever. So I'm thinking, okay, Norway will work, because I know from my time in Japan that the only two countries that actually harvest whales are Norway and Japan.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking, okay, cool. So I call this company up in Norway, and I'm like, so I see that you've got these different things. Do you have any whale skin leather? They're like, whale skin leather products? I said, no, not the products. I just want to know. I said, well, if you carry any whale skin leather products, then I'd like to know where you get the whale skin, because I'd like to get some whale skin to make stuff. And they're like, did you know that trafficking in whale skin is a crime in the European Economic Area, which is like the EU plus? I said, no, I did not. And they said, so what's your name and where are you calling from?
Oh, no.
I said, never mind. Thank you very much. Hung up the phone. So anyhow, I just want to make it clear that I was just inquiring. I don't actually have a secret stash of whale's penis leather anywhere near the bindery. So Cyberchud says,
glad that's on record. I was worried about
We've all just been added to another list.
Jeez.
It's like they're trafficking endangered animal leathers.
We'll get some like PETA terrorists threatening us next. That'll be great. Yeah.
Yeah. So what happened? Well, can you imagine the police report that on the complaint? I was listening to the stream and they started talking about the Herman Melville and whale penis leather. I'd be like, sir, what drugs have you ingested?
The question is, what's Google's algorithm going to do with that information that it just obtained from us? That's the real question. So
that's true. I think we're probably safe because I'm pretty sure they haven't programmed that one.
Nice.
I
do think I do want to test next time we stream because I've noticed that every time I put your name in a stream, my viewership goes down by about half.
Yeah, so leave it out.
So maybe I'll leave it out and I see what happens next time, just because I think Google does suppress your. I mean, it would make sense, right? They do suppress your name. Yeah,
100% they do.
Yeah.
Not only that, what some of your listeners may not know is I am officially banned from setting foot on the Mountain View campus of Google.
Yes, I knew this.
It's even possible. In fact, I was going to have one of my friends find out for me, but it's even possible that I might be banned from Google offices around the world.
Interesting.
So I kind of like to think, and don't think I haven't been tempted to go to the Google office in Zurich or Paris or something, and just walk in and see if it's kind of like when Angel walks into Wolfram and Hart, and they've got the creepy characters in the hoods that are just sitting there doing nothing, and then he walks in and they immediately start going. I like to think that they've gone to that trouble to prepare for Dark Lords.
I wonder if they've got like some sort of like a sci-fi image scanner that pulls up your name and identity to like their little secret service in there immediately, and they've got your full profile pulled up like in this like weird green tone, like on a hologram or something, right?
Oh, and the sirens just start going
right.
And the thing that was so funny is that I think that they were mostly offended. It wasn't that I had the communications from their internal service, but it was that their people were exposed for being such morons. It wasn't just that they were running around threatening violence and all this other stuff, but that they were saying stupid things like, you need to cut the head off the Medusa.
Yes.
In a context that made it very clear that this very high profile Googler or whatever they call themselves didn't know the difference between the Hydra and the Medusa. It's really difficult for people that consider themselves to be the smartest transvestite in the room to be exposed to be a clueless idiot who knows nothing about Greek myths and legends and so forth. By the way, there's a question from True Believer. Is Vox in a real office?
The other question.
We better leave the other question for my wife. She could probably answer that one in more detail than either of us. But is Vox in a real office? Yes, I am. This is actually my grandfather's chair. Those books right behind me are the books that Castalia Library publishes. And it's just kind of my book and game collection. You can even see some, I think, History of the World, Marine 2002, some of my old war games and board games. So
awesome.
In fact, the extent to which I'm a serious gamer can probably be seen by the orange books just above the post on the chair. Those are all advanced squad leader rule books that I put into special folders for quick reference.
I'll say hi to the people over on Unauthorized real quick. They don't the comments don't come up in StreamYard over here. But hello, Silent Draco, Anthony HW, Sir Hamster, LS16. Good to see you guys. Silent Draco does say, Vox Day walks into a Google office with a tape measure. Management change coming.
Yeah, that would be interesting. It is, I made a prediction on my stream last night, and I'll repeat it here. And I realize it's going to sound outlandish, but I firmly believe that unauthorized is going to outlast YouTube. Now, that's totally outrageous, especially in light of the fact that we, as of right now, we have absolutely no subscribers, no paid subscriptions, no nothing whatsoever. But the thing is that our support is real. Our subscribers are real. They don't care whether we switch from one payment method to another, et cetera, et cetera. We've seen that with Castelli Library. It's at this point, stuff that would kill another company is like a minor bump in the road to us because we're so used to it. And that's actually been an incredible blessing in disguise, because all of the hardship that Owen had to go through, that you had to deal with, that I had to deal with, all of that totally unnecessary bullshit that we had to go through has really set us up beautifully to survive the economic contraction that's already underway.
That's fair.
And companies that survive the contractions are the ones that come out of it the giants for the next 50 years. And so I believe that unauthorized is going to be around. Castelli is going to be around. YouTube is not. Google may be around in some shape or form, technology-wise, especially because they're kind of propped up by the military intelligence, complex. They're too useful to be allowed to die, but YouTube isn't. YouTube's already bleeding money.
Why do you think that YouTube would go? What's your indicator on that?
Well, because they're being propped up to the tune of about $2 billion a year. That's how much they lose, and that's fine in the in the era of free money. But already, you're already seeing moves by these lavishly funded companies that were dependent upon free money, like YouTube, like Twitter, et cetera, et cetera. You're already seeing them having to take steps, kind of like Gab, to get some real income, because the advertising money has always been fake. I could never figure out how it made sense for Mercedes to advertise in magazines. You're not going to buy a Mercedes because there's not an ad in some ridiculous architectural magazine that nobody except for rich women reads. Donnie Summer says YouTube is kept up to collect data. There's no useful data left to collect, and they've restricted the stuff there so much that nothing's left to be learned. It's just a massive sink, and so sooner or later, YouTube's going to get shut down for exactly the same reason that Microsoft would shut down its various projects like Zune or whatever. Microsoft could have kept Zune running all this time.
Right.
But it's not going to. Would you take me off for a second? I'm going to change the battery on my camera.
Sure.
So, yeah, just pop me off the screen. If you don't.
Okay. Okay. Well, I pop Vox off of everything. Guys, welcome to the channel. And yes, we've got some interesting stuff going on today. I do want to get to talking about what Vox is going on at his blog today, because he's got a very interesting post. If you are not following along, we are now doing Fandom Pulse. This is my website. Somebody asked earlier about what happened with bounding into comics, and I think it's odd that a lot of people don't know this. But back in October 2023, John Trent, the editor-in-chief of Bounding into Comics, and of course one of my best friends, decided to leave the company. The company there had been sold some time ago, and then it sold to another company called Publisher's Desk. and Publishers Desk instituted some mandated censorship over there. That censorship included taking out the word woke. It ended taking out any criticism of gender pronouns and things like that. They now write articles where they call men in dresses she. And that's kind of what happens at that point. So he quit, and I was looking at it and hoping that the censorship wasn't as bad as they said it was. The other reason he quit, the main one, was because he learned that the corporate over there was actually meeting with Disney, trying to request Disney, what can we do for our website to actually get access? And once he heard that, he's very much on our team here. He understands that when you're trying to get in bed with the devil and taking the ticket, things are not good. And he is a stalwart, of course, very true to himself, very true to his morals person. He immediately said, no, I'm not going to involve myself in that. I'm not taking the ticket. I'm out. And God bless him for that. John Trent's amazing. John Trent quit, and I wasn't sure what was going on at the time. And I was positioning, I'm like, okay, well, maybe I'll take over editor-in-chief. I can bring in some people and do some stuff here. And I started talking with the people over there. As I did so, they offered me a decent amount of money. And so it's interesting. The guys at Bounding now, they attack me almost every day on Twitter, calling me a grifter or whatever. Fandom Pulse is not making revenue, just so you know. Bounding offered me a substantial amount of money to be there. So if this was about money and it was about grifting, I would be there. I do things for the cause, not for the money when we do these things. And I put up an article about the Comic Book Whisper Network, and there's a book coming out by a anonymous journalist named the Penny Parker. And Penny Parker wrote up this whole deal about the Whisper Network called Generation Simone, about Gail Simone and everybody who kind of orbits her. And is going to be publishing a book about that about the end of the year and early next year. And so I was writing up the book and talking about the Whisper Network and how Penny Parker's talked about the Whisper Network. Gail Simone, of course, is part of it. Rich Johnson from Bleeding Cool is, of course, part of it. Heidi McDonald from Comics Beat. A bunch of familiar names. Heather Antos, of course, is big up in that Whisper Network. Mags Visaggio, the transgender activist. It's the usual suspects. And Penny Parker was going to compile it into one spot in a book, which is great. So I wanted to report on this and report that this book's going to be coming out because it's of interest to the conservative following of Bounding into Comics, who are about comics and about the culture war. I was told I was not allowed to write this article because Penny Parker is an anonymous source and therefore it's not verified and not trustable. And I said, you got to be freaking kidding it. Half your articles are rumor, Marvel's going to cast a black woman as Thor, right? I mean, it's like, this isn't this isn't rocket science or like, you know, hard political journalism or anything like that. Like it's half of this is rumors about Marvel movies. So it is censorship. And the point was censorship. And at that point, when they, you know, sat on my article for 3 weeks and then gaslit me and said, well, why didn't you write more articles while waiting for this one to get published? I said, you know what, this is going to be a train wreck. And so I decided to start my own website, which is Fandom Pulse right here. We're up to 8 articles a day. Bounding is usually clocking about 4. So we are doing about double the productivity what they are with our contributors. And we are hard hitting. We do not pull punches. We are not bound to Disney or anything like that. And not only that, but we also do our like positive reporting on different things. We have Eric July's new initiative, Ripascend, which is interesting. I talked yesterday on the stream about how basically Vox was doing this exact same thing in 2018 with his publishing company, and it's interesting to see how this is going now. But more than that, we go and where's let me find this article. Here we are. This is by one of our computers. Just Indie Scan number 21 by TJ Marquis, who's a wonderful independent author. All he does is just list some cool independent projects in books to talk about right now. And this is the type of thing that like you get a little bit of it for Bounding into Comics. Like they'd talk about maybe my book or Vox's book or Eric July's book if it's a big stuff. But we're not just doing that. We are just doing as much as we can to promote the alternatives to mainstream out there, the alternatives to Tor and Bane books, the alternatives to Disney. Whatever comes up, we want to report positively as well as report on the evils that are being done in these corporations. So that's the mission right now, and I hope you're enjoying it.
Speaking of books, you might want to pop over to my blog for a second and click on the sort of book of the month thing. We just announced it today, as it happens.
War Dogs?
Yeah, War Dogs Incorporated. The new. If you click on that, you can see that it's now on Amazon. It's now at Arkhaven, and it's now the cover is. If you go up a little bit, you can see the cover there. But yeah, it's a 450 page hardcover omnibus, and it's what we call a hardcover plus edition. So you get the ebooks, all 3 ebooks, as well as the hardcover omnibus, and it's really good military science fiction. G.D. Stark is actually me working with another author. It's basically I came up with the ideas. He did most of the writing, so it's a collaborative effort.
I love the other writer too. I'm not going to say his name, but he's great.
I don't want to tarnish him by association, but he did a really good job, and it's set in the Quantum Mortis world, which is one of our popular comics and book series. And so, why don't we have more War Dogs yet? Well, because we started. The one author got busy. We tried working with another author, and it didn't quite work out. He actually wrote an entire book. I don't have... Actually, it's kind of funny, John, in light of the fact that we still haven't gotten your book out.
Oh, Jesus. And that's my fault at this point, too.
Well, it was my fault. Now it's your fault. But I honestly have not had a great deal of success with co-writing, which is ironic because I started out co-writing a book with Bruce Bethke, which went really well. But for whatever reason, Steve Rosh and I managed to work effectively together on the one book, but then that just, the second book didn't work out at all. War Dogs worked out great, but the fourth one was, not to my liking, or not to our standard. I'm pretty willing to pull the plug on things if they don't meet our standard.
That's fair. I've done that actually too, and I've got 2 comics which I just never released, and it's just they just didn't feel right.
It's the right thing to do. If it, I mean, that's one area where I've been really fortunate in comics, is because my only comics co-writer is the legend Chuck Dixon.
Yeah.
Like,
fair.
Yeah. What do you do? What do you do to follow that up? And so, but there's so many interesting projects to do. One thing that we're seriously thinking about doing, and I really here's another exclusive for you guys on Fandom Pulse and Unauthorized, is that we're seriously contemplating doing additional junior classics. So
cool.
Adding, we've finished volumes 7 and 8. We've got 9 and 10 coming, and then after that, we just thought, okay, well, we're done. But they've been so popular, and they're still selling so well, that we thought, people are going to want more of these, and there's no reason why we shouldn't. We know how to do it now. We know how to put them together, whether it's a hardcover for the little kids or a leather version for the collectors. So it'll be interesting to see once we get that.
Nice. We do have a super chat on Unauthorized, it looks like, from Jordan Mon, who says, War Dogs comics would be epic when A Man Disrupted wraps up.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to see. The interesting thing about A Man Disrupted is that pre-exists Arkhaven.
Right.
A guy who had never done any comics before but always wanted to just contacted me and said, would you mind if I turned Quantum Mortis into a comic? And I said, I don't mind. I had no interest in comics at the time, so I was like, go for it. Why not? So then after Arkhaven got started, accidentally, I contacted him. I said, "Are you still working on that thing?" He said, "Yeah, I've got like 17 issues done." I was like, "What?" Anyhow, he's finished the whole thing. I mean, there's like, we're not even like a third of the way in on Arctoons yet. I mean, he's just a total machine, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So anyhow, if he ever wants to do delve into War Dogs or something, I mean, in my book, he can do whatever he wants, you know. But it is crazy. One of the things I really love about the talent in our community is that we get some of the craziest, most unpredictable volunteers, which is why some of these weird things happen. Like, I was talking to a friend of mine who happens to be Portuguese, and he said, "Oh, it's too bad that, you know, your books aren't translated into, you know, either French or Italian, because I'd love to read them, but I can't read English." I said, "Well, you're Portuguese, right?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, you read Brazilian Portuguese, right?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, we've got some Brazilian Portuguese translations." He's like, "Why would you do Brazilian Portuguese and not do French or Italian?" I said, "Well, because we had a Brazilian Portuguese volunteer who wanted to do it."
Hmm.
You know, and so, you know, like right now, there's a guy who's translating A Throne of Bones into German. So we're going to have German and Finnish editions coming out whenever we, you know, can get around to getting the artist to translate the cover. You know, I don't know what, you know, A Throne of Bones in Finnish is. It's totally unpronounceable.
Right.
It's like one long word that has lots of umlauts and H's in it.
That's how it always goes. Cool. Well, a lot of cool projects, and there's always the thing is, like, when you're like us, there's always a new shiny project. You can't get away from it. It's almost like I would like less ideas for projects personally.
What's your sort of dream project now? Like, if you had the resources, let's say that you did a you knew you did a crowdfund, you knew it was going to work, and be funded. What would it be? Who would you be working with?
What would be the? I would really like to do like other than, you know, just my continuing along the projects like Overmind that I'm going to do anyway that I love. I would love to do a comic book adaptation of Paul Anderson's The High Crusade. Would be probably my number one idea for a project.
It's a good choice. It's a good book.
Yeah, and I'd very faithfully adapt that, of course. And then on art for it, who would I like on art for it? My guy who did Deus Vult is pretty good, and I might just want to, because he's already got that Crusader style to it.
He's got that sort of old kind of Prince Valiant sort of.
And I dig that, and that would fit this story pretty well as well.
Have you looked into getting the rights to it?
I asked him who has the rights to it. So his daughter or son.
His daughter has the estate.
Yeah, his daughter is Elizabeth Bear. Is it? Is that right?
No.
Oh, wait,
no,
Greg.
She's got like a Scandinavian name. If I recall correctly.
Astrid Anderson. It's not Elizabeth. It's Greg Bear's wife. Yes.
There you go. Yeah.
Astrid Anderson. And I messaged her 4 or 5 years ago, and she said, "Oh, I've got some, you know, lawyer who handles all this stuff. Message him." And I did that, and the lawyer never replied. And I messaged multiple times. So.
Well, maybe what we can do is, people tend to be a lot more interested in doing leather-bound editions.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not to like take off my shirt and flex on the stream, but maybe you've heard we're working with a little publisher out of England. Just a little publisher that hasn't been around very long, only, I don't know, 500 years.
Right.
So I mean, if even Cambridge University Press gets excited when you talk to them about doing a leather-bound edition, I wouldn't be averse to, doing a Anderson book or three.
Right.
And so maybe we could get them to say, hey, while we're doing that, would you mind letting us have the comic book rights too?
And that would actually be an interesting way to sell things is, hey, these are the Paul Anderson, and you could actually, now I'm starting to think about doing a trilogy of his works, right? And not just High Crusade. But you could sell the campaign with, here's the leather-bound edition of the novel and here's the comic, and
right, exactly.
And do things and you'd make some good money doing that. Yeah.
Maybe.
Interesting.
To be honest, to me that's not the kind of project you do to make money.
No, I just love it.
It's the project
right?
It's the project you do to be awesome. If it happens to make money, fine.
Yeah.
We have, like, for example, the two projects that we're doing with Cambridge University Press right now, one of them, the History of Byzantium, is going to be successful just because it's going to be part of the history subscription.
Right.
It's one huge book. They gave us permission to divide it into 2 volumes because you can't do leather that big without it, damaging the structural integrity of the book. And so that's going to be fine. But the other one we're really doing it more as a flagship exhibition of what we can do. And so, we're doing a 9-volume history of Japan, which is, it's the most significant work in English ever published on Japan. And, we're going to do like 250 sets. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be a very exclusive thing. Maybe we'll sell out, maybe we'll just break even. Doesn't really matter. The important thing is when we're talking to other publishers and stuff, we can say, like, I don't know, an estate that begins with T or that sort, the kind of stuff that can really sell well. You want to have something you can show them that is just exceptional, that is, better than anything that Easton's ever attempted. Mm-hmm. And so those are the type of projects I think that are the most exciting, the most interesting, the kind of stuff that nobody else is going to do.
Right. Cool.
We'll see. The Nate 313 doesn't seem to be really buying. He says leather book about history. Dude, that's where it's at. If you don't know the history, you don't know the future. Jinky McJangle says, I will buy the history of Japan. I would respect if you did that, but you need to understand that this is a set that's probably going to go for about $1,500.
Yes.
Now, of course, we're going to make it easy it'll be a subscription that people can pay by the month. So, it's not like people have to fork it all up at once. But, doing the things that last is what's really satisfying. Janky called me out. He said, I said I would buy and I will buy. Okay. Cool. Much respect.
Yeah. Fair.
I will make sure you email me just in case. I'm not going to hold you to it, but just go ahead and email me and I will make sure that one set is held for you. So, awesome. You'll have the first option, Janky. But but the thing is, you never know. When we started doing the Castelia Library, our goal was 30 books. We were hoping to sell 30 books of our first edition, which was the Missionaries. We ended up doing 500 and selling out like immediately. When we started doing history, I was thinking, okay, well, we hit 500 with library, but people are already subscribed to library. They're not going to do both. Maybe history is a little bit not as much interest, et cetera, et cetera. We are already sold out of the 500 copies that we did of medieval history 1 and 2. Yeah, I mean, before
Cool.
we were actually worried that the subscription was still active. We were afraid too many people were going to sign up, so that we'd run out of books. So we're going to like have to we thought maybe we might have to hand bind, 10 of them if necessary. But, it's just, it's just amazing what people are interested in, whether it's comics, whether it's history, whether it's literature. But what they want in all of those things is they want quality. They want good stories. They want good writing. They want interesting characters. And they want a beautiful production. And we don't always succeed in that. Sometimes we fall down a bit on the writing. Sometimes the art isn't what we want it to be. Sometimes we make mistakes in the production, But the point is to always be trying to do better. I mean, your writing is, on the fiction side, has improved considerably in the last 10 years. I've read some of the early stuff, and people sometimes it's weird because people sometimes take that as an insult, which I've never understood because
you should want to get better. That should be the entire purpose of things. I find it tough. It's like I mean, my best-selling series is this steampunk series that I have now, and like people are always asking me about that. And when's the next one? When's the next one? When's the next one? Because that first book sold like 30,000 copies, and that's it. Right. Unfortunately, that first book, and so the thing is, like when people find the series now, I'm always just like, all right, so trust me, like make sure you get into the second and third book before you judge all this, because like I became so much of a better writer, and now I'm in book 6 of it, and of course my writing is astronomically better than book 3. And that is astronomically better than book 1, that it's like I'm almost embarrassed to have people read book 1 because it's one of the first books I ever wrote. But you kind of, because it's a series, there's nothing you could do there, right?
Exactly.
So it's interesting, but no, I can't imagine being insulted by that. That's really good to know, because it's like you always wonder as a writer, because you don't get as much feedback as people might think, if like if the newer stuff is doing better, at least on the sort of objective side, than it was in the prior books. So
that was what I struggled with in finishing A Sea of Skulls, and it was one of the reasons that it took so long to finish. For those of you who don't know, I've written 2 epic fantasy novels. They're both about 940 pages or something, so they're quite long, and people have been kind enough to say that they compare favorably to George Martin and disfavorably to Tolkien, which I think is probably pretty reasonable.
That's fair.
I mean,
low bar for George Martin, though, in my opinion. So
I think George Martin is peak. George Martin is a very good writer.
I couldn't finish the books.
His story Sand Kings. He has a kind of a horror story called Sand Kings. That's really good. I mean, I knew who he was and paid attention to him when, because when the first.
Oh shoot, we have audio. Vox turned himself up to like 200%. So, dang it! I thought we fixed it.
All right. Well, Lord Colchis knows. He said Sand Kings is a classic. But the thing is that his base. Jaeger says after book 3 of Game of Thrones, his writing fell off a cliff. I don't think his writing really changed that much. His style didn't change that much. He didn't. It wasn't like Colleen McCullough, where she just literally lost her fastball. I mean, she hit the wall as a writer like nobody I've ever seen. I mean, I didn't even recognize her as the same writer, but. Where Martin went wrong, Bradford Walker asks, where did Martin go wrong? Where he went wrong is that he was not disciplined with his number of perspective characters. The problem with introducing a new perspective character in an epic fantasy, and writing an epic fantasy is very, very different than writing a series of normal length books or a long series of shorter books. It's much more difficult, and that's why there's very few epic fantasy writers, and that's why a lot of them don't even finish their series, or just can't keep it up. And because the stories are very, very complicated, they're much more interwoven, and you have to balance. It's almost like mixing music. You can't have too much drums. You can't have you can't have too much of Jon Snow and too little of Daenerys and that sort of thing. And in addition to the plot problem, the plot complexities, the main thing is that you have to continue a story of a perspective character. Readers do not accept it when there's a perspective character whose story doesn't resolve somehow. And so I realized this pretty early on, because I was thinking, why is Martin losing the plot? And I mapped out how many perspective characters he had. He had like 9 in the first book and 22 in the second book.
Oof.
And like I think it got up to like 25 or 30 by the third or fourth book.
That's wild.
And so that's why he can't finish it. He has no hope of finishing it, because he can't wrap the story up in any way, shape, or form without just abandoning it. And so when you people, it always makes me laugh because people say, oh, Martin kills too many characters. No, Martin's problem is he doesn't kill enough characters.
Interesting.
If somebody came to me and said, okay, you need to wrap the story up, you need to finish the Game of Thrones story up, and you need to do it in 1 or 2 books at most, I would absolutely have the most epic battle, and as early as I could set it up, I'd have an absolutely massive battle, and half the characters would die in that battle. It would be epic. It would make the Red Wedding look like a minor spat at a tea party. And most importantly, it would fix the fundamental infrastructural problem of the series. I would get it down to like 12 at most, preferably 9 or 10 perspective characters, and then you could wrap the book up. Then you can wrap the story up. But if you look at, here's the problem. I'm disciplined with my perspective characters, and yet I got a little bit imbalanced because the 2 of the female characters had storylines that, frankly, I wasn't that interested in writing. I wasn't that interested in working out the details. And then, fortunately, when I was on the final stretch, and they were kind of the 2 of the 3 that I had to wrap up, an idea came to me that really worked out well for one of them, and then the other one was, I always knew what I was doing, so that wasn't a problem. But it's a real challenge, and what Martin achieved is much greater than what most authors will ever even attempt. But he still failed. Which is, there's nothing wrong with that. I consider my book Summa Helvetica, which a lot of people like, a failure because I didn't achieve what I wanted to achieve. Is it a good fantasy book? Sure. It laid the groundwork for A Throne of Bones and A Sea of Skulls, so I love it. But I was trying to do something very complicated there, and it didn't work. I just couldn't do it.
Interesting. Well, this has been a great discussion. I need to go see Dune, though.
Okay.
So it's a great time to cut out. We didn't even talk about the topic of Gab and the Cult of the Free, which is the interesting topic of the day for real. But we can do that another time. I love those
honestly,
discussions too.
I'm kind of bored of it anyhow. So
fair.
Say love you.
Awesome.
Right.
Thanks, Fox, for joining us. Thank you, chat, for being here unauthorized. We really appreciate you, of course. And it looks like we're going to attempt to do this on a weekly basis. I think this is a good show. And next time we're going to run the experiment on YouTube where I don't put your name in anything and see if that bumps the algorithm because of suppression tactics. Because more people should be seeing this. And yeah, thanks.
Very good.
Anything
We'll have
from
to come
you,
up.
Vox?
We'll have to come up with our own Arkhaven gang sign.
That's right. I guess you should go check out War Dogs Incorporated, the new hardcover edition, which I'm going to put in the link in the chat here, guys, right here. And yeah, have a great night.
Have a good evening.